Hello, and now I'm going to walk you through the last question or last reading question for paper 2 English language. So question 4, that's the biggest mark one. Look there, we see 16 marks for this one. And we are again, like question 2, being asked to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. So we're bringing together both sources and we are looking at this focus. How does the writer's perspective be presented? Alright, so perspective of words for that could be viewpoint, attitude, ideas. So realistically, what is their opinion on the thing that they're describing? That's what we're looking for, and what are the differences between their opinions. So in the answer, we are given these bullet points, which is really helpful because essentially these bullet points are the mark scheme. So as long as you do them, you are getting the marks. So compare the ideas in each source. We are starting off then with a point that links both sources together. Both sources explore the idea of, both demonstrate different attitudes to, both have a similar attitude to this. So there can be similarities, they can be differences, but you have a linking point. We need to compare the methods. Methods means language, can be structure as well. And we're obviously going to support our point with quotations. So essentially we are, after our linking point, we're giving our evidence, we're analysing terminology, and we are looking at the effect. So we're doing that for each source. So linking point, evidence, terminology, effect for A, evidence, terminology, effect for B. And we want 4 from each. So these kind of 4 comparison paragraphs. That will be enough to get us up to the 16 marks. So if we have a look at the text, we're still on the same text that we've been on all the time. But note that again, with your annotations, this is going to be the 3rd time you've annotated one of the texts. That could start to look really, really messy. So I have a different colour pen, or like I have, different form of annotation. So this was question 2 that I've underlined with straight lines. Question 3, I've gone for the nice little wavy line. And so for question 4, when I've started to pick stuff out, I'm going to go for this circle, and I've only annotated enough for 1 point here. And really, you can reuse. So you see these ones that I've circled had a wavy line under them. That's fine to reuse a language point that you've made for question 3, as long as it actually answers question 4. So because I'm looking at the perspective on war, these 2 metaphors that we use to describe the shells really show me the perspective, the viewpoint on war, particularly that one, devils. Whereas this onomatopoeia that I use, that kind of creates a sound, it doesn't necessarily show perspective, so I wouldn't use that one again. And what I noted here with these metaphors is that one of them kind of really calls them kind of something very trivial, musical instruments, which doesn't seem very serious when they're essentially bombs that could kill you. But often soldiers do this to kind of make something seem less serious. You're out there, you don't want to be constantly reminded of threat and death and dying. So trivialising it with a metaphor is kind of a way of coping with that. Whereas Frank Jones Bateman is cut by it, so he's kind of a bit more negative there, isn't he? His devil's metaphor is very much presented by the fact that one of them's actually hurt him. So there's 2 contrasting metaphors I can talk about their perspectives. And interestingly, really similarly, there's a kind of similar juxtaposition here. This soldier acknowledges that he is safe, and there's a club with cold beer and cokes because he is not on the front line. Alright, I get to stay back here. But he acknowledges the threat and danger to the soldiers who are. These guys don't get anything. They have a pretty hard time out there. It's a hot, dirty, mean war. Marines get hurt and some get killed. Seems like an awful place to die halfway around the world, but I guess it has to be done. So there's a real juxtaposition there between the cold beers and the comforts and luxuries that he's got and the hot, dirty, mean war that the other soldiers have to experience. So we can see a clear difference there. There's maybe a sense of his own guilt, that he's kind of safe and protected. Really important when you are picking things out to notice any changes in attitude. So here it's just kind of like trivial things that are causing issues. Bugs, the heat, the bugs are pain in the neck. Whereas in this final letter, there is a sense of the more serious, the actual life-threatening reality of war, the getting killed or wounded. and his "I guess it has to be done" kind of really shows a lack of certainty here. That phrase "I guess" gives us a hint of doubt that they're doing the right thing being out there. So really important on that fourth question to track any changes in attitude that come through a text. So we need to be aware of those. When it comes to writing up then, like I said, we're using that point and then evidence, technique, effect. So here I've got a linking point. Both writers use juxtaposition to show conflicting attitudes to the war. And then I'm going to go into my source A. In source A, two very different metaphors are used to describe the shells. So that's my evidence here, and my terminology. Like I said, they don't always have to be in the same order as long as you're doing it all. So I've introduced my technique first, then my evidence. That's fine. Two different metaphors used to describe shells: musical instruments and devils. The sergeant's use of the more positive metaphor, musical instruments, which refers to the sound of the shells, deliberately trivialises them. This might be done as a coping strategy to make them seem less threatening, and psychologically gives the soldiers more strength. So I've explained why that attitude exists. Whereas Jones Bateman, he use of the more aggressive devils, personifies the shells, his anger clearly stemming from the fact he was injured in the attack. So I've given the language, I've explained the effect of the language, but I've also explained why they have that attitude. So that's going to help push me right up to those top marks. And then I would do exactly the same for B. Give my evidence, explain the attitude, explain why he has that attitude, and now I'm going to do that at least 3 more times. And then I've got all my great marks, and I can go forward and enjoy my writing task knowing that I've absolutely smashed the reading section. So the key bits here, make sure you include any changes in attitude. Essentially, we're drawing together the inference skills from question 2. This is kind of on the why thing. So why is he using that language? What is it showing in attitude? Why do they feel that way? With the language analysis of question 3. So it's kind of, I think as the exam board really awfully put it, this is the end of the assessment journey in terms of reading. We've done inference, we've done language analysis, and so we're now going to bring those 2 strands together to look at how the perspective, the viewpoint is presented. So it's all rounding up beautifully. I'm sure that's how you'll feel in the exam on Monday. All right, and that's it. 4 paragraphs that look like that, and you've absolutely nailed it. Good luck on Monday.